Great. Thank you very much for attending the panel. And I realize that we are in, let's say, heightened heat circumstances, and you are gently melting away. But we'll try and keep it slightly balanced by having some fascinating insights that we're going to get from my distinguished panelists. So let me talk about healthcare. And traditionally, I'm a banker by trade, the very boring stuff, finance, money, and you really don't want to do this. And I started getting into healthcare when I came to Abu Dhabi, and I'm telling you, I got absolutely blown away. And for a boring old banker like me to start getting blown away, it takes quite a lot of things. The stuff that's happening in this particular country, and specifically in Abu Dhabi, is mind-blowing. And the kind of the ecosystem that has been brought up, which we'll explore in a moment, is amazing. The forward thinking that they did, but also the responsiveness. I was speaking to a friend of mine who is at the Department of Health yesterday evening, and I was praising him because there are very few healthcare systems that were able to be agile, mobile, and hostile to diseases and problems like Abu Dhabi and UAE did. So, without any further ado, what I'm going to do is to go through this particular session and talk about what's the forecast for the healthcare sector. We will talk about the people element. That's a big issue over here. The third element is obviously the regulatory landscape. Healthcare is very highly regulated, and its path is very frequently guided and driven by how the regulatory landscape works. And we'll talk a bit about money. Unfortunately, we need to bring that in. And that should give you, especially from a healthcare innovation and startup perspective, a soup to nuts, quick 25-minute overview of what to do to go forward. So let me address my panelists, and I'm going to ask them the first question. What do you think of the healthcare sector over the next, I would say, 12, 24 months? And before they answer the question, if they can introduce themselves, because their personal stories are amazing. I was gobsmacked. And of course, their firms. If you don't mind, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Cornave. I work for Pure Health, a large integrated platform of healthcare services that you may have heard of already. My personal background, I've got a PhD in healthcare management. I've been working in the healthcare sector in different countries with different entities, different organizations for the last 25, 26 years. And to answer your question about what the future may look like, and I think with COVID, we've all experienced the good bits of healthcare and the bad bits of healthcare. The good bits you saw a lot of here in Abu Dhabi. One of the reasons why people, as we could see from the video earlier, are quite happy and engaged to be in a place like this. The bad bits we also know, right? So from that, to pivot away from that and to look at actually, well, how can we do things better? Now, what was good with the COVID is it showed us a future that can be much more digitalized, especially here, not so much in my home country when I was there over the summer, 2 summers when COVID was there. It wasn't very integrated, but we know now a little bit about what the future can bring. But I think most importantly for us as Pure Health, as a company, our vision is to really kind of address some of the challenges in healthcare. Healthcare as an industry, unlike other industries maybe, is really a little bit behind in many instances. So let me explain that for a little bit. Let me unpack that. So as healthcare professionals, we want people to be happy, to live longer. We want to focus on preventive health, optimizing health, rather than curative health. So prevention is better than cure, as we all know. But it's taken us a long, long time to get there. We still focus a lot on our hospitals, our traditional models of bringing people into the hospital rather than bringing the hospital to the people. And I think ultimately what we want to do for us as a company and having different assets under us is to focus on our vision, which is to help people, enable people to live longer, happier, healthier lives and move that needle towards an unimaginable future. As we heard earlier about the singularity,
yes.
That's maybe not what you want to do or where most people may not want to be, but certainly there's a gap. And there's a gap in terms of the outcomes that we as a healthcare industry are not delivering, and we're not doing ourselves a good service with that, and or our patients that we serve. And that's a big challenge, and thankfully there's a lot of technology and there's a lot of people like you here today, a lot of startups who can help us with that. And it will take a lot of things like nanotechnology, stem cell research. We looked at the blood,
Yes.
new innovation in terms of blood management, but also simple things like healthcare management, digital health. And I'll hand over to my colleague here next to me to talk a little bit about that as well. But
Sounds good.
yeah.
Doctor?
Good morning, everyone. This is Hasna Al-Mtawa, founder of Easy Health. I came from a very different background. I used to work in oil and gas. I'm a health economist. I used to be the guy who's, managing the health expenses in a very banking style way. And during my work in oil and gas, I realized that people tend to go to a hospital when they have injury. So hospitals for those people is just for acute cases. And they tend to ignore their health, end up with chronic diseases. So I realized that there is a gap in preventive care, which led me to start my venture. My mission of launching this is to provide a fair access to people everywhere. We work in the UAE. I know the UAE is a very developed country. There is access to everyone to healthcare. But when you look at countries like Egypt, Iraq, people don't have access to healthcare, and it's very expensive in those countries. So this is what led us to focus on telehealth. Now back to your question, saying what's the future of telehealth? What's the future of the healthcare in the market? I think the healthcare will move more to a virtual care style. The centric patients model will be more promoted among all providers, even if there are players in the market that they don't get it now, but it will be there soon. We've seen patients looking for a very practical module. We've seen patients looking for a virtual care module. They want the doctor to come home. They don't want to go to hospitals. Post-COVID, the mindset changed, and this was the reason that fast-tracked the regulators to look at these areas and give it a clarity. The policies now is very clear. People are more open to this type of practices.
Okay, that's great. So look, one of the things that frequently comes up is that we tend to focus on the tech side of health tech. And the challenge that comes up is that whilst that is extremely important and that technology is opening up quite a lot of doors, it's all about the people. And if you don't have the right people to envision, deliver, manage, fund, the people element, if that is not looked at, all this technology is going to be just some excited electrons moving around in a computer somewhere. So let's ask the panelists about what do they think about the talent issue, the people agenda in this particular region, and what do they think about what needed and what can be done. Doctor?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd have a little bit of a contrarian view on this one. I think the problem is not so much that there isn't enough talent. I think the way we deal with talent can be improved a lot, right? So let me give you an example. So we have in our system, as Pure Health, we have access to 24,000 people who've all got different backgrounds, lots of experience in our labs, in our hospitals, in our clinics, in our pharmacies. And what we really struggle with as an industry, I guess, again, is matching that. So matching that to the right person. So for example, when I looked at clinical research and at setting up clinical trials, one of the main indicators is that we want to see from our principal investigators is how much experience do they have, how many publications have they had, what's the impact been of those publications. We, to date, as an industry, don't really manage that very well, right? So it's on the individual to publicize that. So I discovered out of our 3,000 physicians, we have quite a lot of them, possibly hundreds of them, and I'm actively engaged in them, that's why I can't give you an exact answer,
right.
Possibly hundreds of them who have a good impact factor when it comes to their publications.
I don't know.
That meaning that they're quite experienced in their own field, whether it be urology, pathology, whatever their specialty is, but we haven't really been able to nurture that talent and say to the rest of the world, well, come and deal with the
Wow.
people. They're interested in new products. They're interested in new solutions. They're interested sometimes in innovating themselves as well. So think it from that talent point of view, from the very beginning of a funnel of there's lots of ideas, everybody has a lot of ideas, but connecting that as an organization, that's my responsibility, I guess, is connecting those dots, making sure that people find their right place at the right time and matching them to the problems that we know are out there in our system and beyond. So,
I mean, this is an example of it just surprised me. I never actually even imagined that Abu Dhabi as a location and UAE broader within this company has got such a large number of people who are, if I may put it this way, research scientists beside being medical professionals. And that kind of firepower is extraordinary. But we'll come back to that. Dr. Hasna, your thoughts?
When you talk about talent, I believe that talent is a challenge for all companies from different industries. With all the technologies we have now, nobody cracked the code how to find the right talent and how to inspire them to stay with you. In our experience in Easy Health, we realized that the more you make the system work in a very user-friendly way, the better it is for you in case you lost that talent or those people are not good enough for this position. I see a gap in the healthcare industry in terms of the region understanding. So when you see healthcare providers or people who works in healthcare, they're technically capable, but when it comes to region understanding and the culture understandings, the ethical part of the job, it's very challenging. Because sometimes things might go well somewhere else, but when you bring that same experience here, it's challenging. So I think we'd love to see more of, preparing those talents to be ethically up to level of providing healthcare services, or teaching them the value system and what is ethics in healthcare. I think this is where we need to focus as a healthcare givers or
great.
Market.
I mean, you can see the summary. Great talent already available, but it needs to be enhanced, identified, and perhaps deployed in a more interesting fashion. Let's talk about regulation. And as I already mentioned, one of the things that really impressed me, and my very good friend, Dr. Dirk Richer, who's unfortunately in Helsinki, slightly cooler than here, and we keep on having sort of, meetings and coffees every 2 weeks or so. And we keep on talking about the fact that the regulatory landscape that is required for healthcare, medicine, and the broader ecosystem has to itself go through a transformation. The speed at which things are spreading, the availability of data, the availability of technology, the interesting co-links, and the shift of focus, as Dr. You said, about moving away from trying to fix the problem to trying to prevent the problem. All these require a different regulatory landscape, and hand on heart, and I'm not just boasting, I think some very, very interesting things are happening in Abu Dhabi. So let's find out. Dr. Hasnam, if we can start from your side this time.
I'm glad the OH team is here, so you're hearing it from me. So, see, regulation is a challenge in healthcare, especially, there are many things that people are considering when it comes to regulating a healthcare service, whether it's data privacy, many other stuff, breach of contract, ethics. But what we've seen in Abu Dhabi, there is I think Abu Dhabi, Department of Health in particular, decided that this is enough. We want to move. We want to move on, and we want to create we want to start the new era of regulating healthcare, and this is what they've done. As a matter of fact, I'd like to mention that I was one of the few applicants, literally the second applicant in the HealthTech lab. I'm pretty much born in DOH lab, and I've seen how they are trying to bend the rules, trying to, even if sometimes they come to us and we say, okay, we want to do this, it's not written anywhere. They bring the team who's in charge of that, and we sit together and we create the regulation together. I challenge anyone to find that in any market.
Agreed.
They will not open the discussion with you to talk about what you want to do that is different in the future. And DOH lab succeeded in doing that. Now they are in a very advanced level of knowing what's going on, knowing what the startup needs, and we're still in contact, we still talk, we still fight over many things. And the good thing is they open the door for you to have a voice, to push, to change the regulation, which is amazing. I mean, I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you.
I mean, we have our colleagues. Please go and bother them after this. I'm sorry. One of the things that I just wanted to add to what Dr. Hasna said is that one of the things you'll find, especially in Abu Dhabi, is the government and the regulators, they love for you to come to them and start the conversation with if only. If only this was possible. If only we could do this. And this show that progressive mentality of open to questions. Far too often regulators say, you know what, if I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Well, that's not here. Doctor, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. I think there's three things I want to say. One is, as you said, and you already praised, I think DOH gets a lot of praise, and rightly so. So thank you for creating a regulatory environment that's very supportive. That is kind of beyond what other countries do, in my opinion. Secondly, because regulation involves a lot of different rules, and the rules are not made up by people just to make life hard. But in organizations like Pure Health, we also have rules, right? So we also have the hurdles that can become hurdles. They're rules that are supportive, we're open for business. We want to encourage innovation, but at the same time, there are certain rules that we want to apply, whether it be an org chart as a rule, right? Or a rule of how we engage normally, right? So that's also, and I can see that from the startups we've engaged with or other companies we've engaged with, that can be a hurdle. And that can be smoothed out as well. The Department of Health often holds us accountable to that. Regular, frequent contact helps to smoothen those hurdles. Last and the most important thing is, I think and you alluded to it earlier on about the COVID, I think one of the fantastic things is we can now have more than a couple of examples whereby we went from nothing to something in a very short amount of time, right? And we think about COVID, we already explained. When I worked for Malafi, the Health Information Exchange, it was brilliant. It happened almost overnight. When we ask other people in the world, like how long does it take to set up a Health Information Exchange in any other country, ask them that question, they will say years, probably decades. Some of them will never get there. We here, and I was very happy to be part of it, saw that happen within a very, very short time frame. And we now reap the benefits from that. I think once people see that, and when they say, okay, here's an example, we did this very short time frame. We set up PCR testing very, very quickly. We set up whole hospitals. I know people started talking about China creating lots of hospitals at the beginning of COVID, but here it was amazing how quickly it went. And when people see that and see innovation in real life examples of it, then it's the question, like, why can we not do it like we did it before? What are the reasons? And then when you talk about the reasons, of course, there's lots of reasons why we can't do nanotechnology straight away to everybody or whatever we want to do, right? That's maybe a longer term, but at least we have examples and we have a system around it that's very supportive.
So this is exactly what I meant by, as Charles Darwin said, the success of a particular species is not dependent on how big or fast you are, but how responsive you are to change. And that's the key thing that's coming up. But unfortunately, all change requires money. So, show me the money. We have quite a lot of healthcare and related life sciences startups here. We have some startups here exhibiting. And at the end of the day, this is a special sector that needs what I describe as patient capital. This is not a standard VC place where you talk in, you come in, oh, this is exciting stuff, within 2 years or 3 years, I'm going to exit with 2x. You need patient capital. You need people who understand this, people who've got that, if you will, heart and mind, besides the fortitude to stay the course. This is not a quick and dirty thing. You're not producing soap over here. So, in the last 5 minutes that we have got, we would love to hear from both our panelists about what do they see in terms of the financing of innovation. What are the advice pieces that they would give to people who are listening to this right now or later on? So, shall we start with you?
Yeah, it's fine. Let's talk about finance. I think what I find with engaging with startups is, okay, there's two elements to this. One is One is it's hard to quantify, which is more the indirect cost, right? So you want to get a sponsor for your product or somebody who's engaging with you, who can tell a story on your behalf, or who can be especially give the credibility. In healthcare, it's very important that you align to the right specialist or the right consultant who can say, well, I have 1,000 patients that can really benefit from this. Who becomes your advocate, right? That's one thing that I think should not be overlooked. I think as a company, as Pure Health, that's where we really can do a lot of support. And we were talking earlier about that as well, and we'll continue that conversation, I hope. About the actual money, the money that's physically transactions, that's also a longer term view. What I find, having been in this role for a while now, what I find is that the dollar value, the higher it gets, the more interesting it becomes from investors as well, which I think is a bit irrational, to be honest with you. My idea would be you have a funnel, you have lots of ideas. Not all of those ideas will come to a kind of a business plan or a solution, but at the early stage, really, we should support people at TRL levels very early on, like 2 and 3, rather than the 5s and 6, because we know that story already. And plus, we don't know what the future really involves. So I think having the Department of Health there and having the 80-odd companies there is very, very important. They're at different levels. They need require different funding, and some of them it's quite relatively minor, but can have a really big impact.
That's a fair point. Dr. Hassan?
I want to give an advice to anyone who wants to start a business in healthcare to have a thick skin. Because when you come as a startup and you are in a very early stage and you're pitching and you're excited that the investor will get excited with your idea, you realize that people don't care, right? So to find the right investor or to find the healthcare VC focused in the market is challenging for health tech startups. Because the thing is, the ROI in healthcare is not a rapid ROI. It's not tangible at the early stage. Yeah. So you need people to understand how much your data value. What is the potential of that business? It's not any normal business where you're selling the future and that's it. It's not a straightforward. It's not A to B. It has some. So you will end up being a different startup, different type of startup. Now, when I compare myself with my peers in Hub 71, it's straightforward for any other industry. They go, they pitch, if they like the product, they'll take it. But for me, I do my due diligence before I go pitch to the investor because I don't want to end up with an investor who doesn't know. I always say to people, I'm not selling cupcakes. It's not like a straightforward transactions. Yes, money is important, but you need to see the potential for that. You need people who understand the market. And I think lately, we've heard that the investments in healthcare dropped in the last year and this year. I think with the move happening after COVID, all the VCs put their money on these new tech startups, and now people need to see the ROI of that. That's why there is a slow movement in terms of healthcare investments, but I don't think it's going to die. People will not stop going to the hospital, so I think you guys are betting on the right horse.
Great. So I think we are bang on time, and let me just try and wrap up. So what you heard about and the video, that I think over here some very, very exciting areas of healthcare innovation is actively being encouraged, seeded, and supported by the Department of Health, Hub 71, ADGM, about the healthcare, the hospitals, the entire ecosystem is here. You heard about the fact that, yes, you might be looking at the resource issues, but there's substantial issues. It just needs to be enhanced, identified, and developed. We talked about, in terms of the regulatory framework and how welcoming it is. And as I said, we've got colleagues over here, so please, as I said, bother them. My apologies, my friends, but there we go. And you also heard about the financing. It is slightly different from what your traditional e-commerce or fintech financing would be needed, but there is hope. So thank you very much for bearing with us in this heat, and hope you find it useful. Back to our moderator, who is there.
Applause here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.